This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for joining us. All of the oxygen in politics this year has been centered around the high-stakes, high-profile, all-consuming presidential race. Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, the first to 270, takes it all. To crunch the latest numbers and to get a feel for the scenarios that could play out, I'm joined by Shepard from Politico. He's the editor for the Politico Caucus. He's chief polling analyst for Politico also. Stephen, an honor to have you on the program. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's wrong with the polls. This is an article that you wrote recently about some of the wild fluctuations we're seeing in some of the public polls, a little more constant in internal polling from the campaigns. There's a lot of data out there. Should we trust the poll averages that we're seeing?
Well, the one thing we have seen in recent days is the polls sort of come together, but it was a bumpy ride getting there. You'll recall the ABC News Washington Post poll, the day it first came out, the tracking poll, had Hillary Clinton up by 12 points immediately following the third and final debate with Donald Trump. Now the race is a lot closer, and it swung very suddenly. On the next four-day track, right after the first one that showed her up 12, she was only up by 2. The reality is the race has tightened over the past couple of weeks. But it's quite possible that both of those polls may have overstated that the momentum that each candidate had. You mentioned internal polls that the campaigns rely on. Those are much more stable. Those are much more static. That said, even those have moved and tightened a little bit as we head down the stretch here in the final weekend.
All right, another interesting article of yours recently is talking about what they call shy Trump voters. You write in the article they're a mirage. This kind of centers on a question that I get a lot, Stephen. It's, are there people that are voting for Trump, but they're not willing to tell pollsters that they're voting for Trump? What's your take on that?
Right, we wanted to test this in a scientific way. We worked through the online pollster Morning Consult, our partners for this project. We started everybody off in an online survey. Half of the people were prompted then to call a telephone operator and then were asked whom they were going to vote for by a phone operator. They would have had to say to another person on the other end of the phone, anonymously still, but to another person, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. The other half continued the survey online. We didn't find a statistical difference between the people who did so over the phone and the people who did so online, which might better replicate the secret ballot. That suggests that there isn't this hidden army of people who are telling pollsters they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton, but in reality are going to show up and vote for Donald Trump. That's been a big cog in his argument, particularly when he trailed in the polls by a wider margin. Both he and his campaign manager, Republican pollster Kellyanne Conway, talked about this a lot. The fact that they were going to outperform these numbers. We're not seeing that in a significant way. There are some key groups, particularly college-educated voters, where we did see a bit of a difference. But overall, on balance, it doesn't look like it's enough to swing the election.
Well, so you're telling me that a campaign has been spinning us, that they've been telling us that something's a little bit different than what reality is? That's good stuff there. Now, that was a little different than what you guys saw in your primary. You did a similar poll or a little bit of a test focus group in the primaries and got a little bit different response, right?
That's right. The Morning Consult folks found in the Republican primary, they did this back in December of 2015. This is before a single vote was cast in a primary or caucus. They found more support for Donald Trump online than over the phone in a very similar study. Now, that study was among Republican primary voters, so people who vote in Republican primaries, whether they're registered Republicans or the states that allow independents to vote who lean towards the Republican Party. They did find a little bit of a difference. I mean, certainly last December was not just was it 11 months ago, but it feels like a lifetime ago in this campaign. That group of people isn't necessarily reflective of the overall electorate. A lot more people vote in the general election than voted in the Republican or Democratic primaries across the country. So right now we're not seeing signs that this is going to have a significant impact on Election Day, that Donald Trump is poised to outperform his polling numbers because people right now are lying to pollsters that they intend to support Hillary Clinton and in reality they're going to vote for Donald Trump. There are other things that can go wrong with the polls, but right now, at least as far as the people that we're getting on the phone and them giving us an honest answer to another person on the other end of the line, that doesn't look like it's going to be a factor.
All right, Stephen Shepard, chief polling analyst for Politico.com. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to get your take on 270 and how Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump get there. We're back right after this word from our sponsors. And we're back with Stephen Shepard, the editor for the Politico caucus, chief polling analyst for Politico. All right, Stephen, let's talk about the path to 270 for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I want you to take me through Hillary Clinton first. She's got many more options, although they've become a little bit reduced with the tightening of the race. How does Hillary Clinton get to 270?
Well, it starts with winning states that have been leaning in her column, battleground states that have been leaning in her column this entire race. I'm talking about states like Virginia, states like Colorado, Wisconsin, Minnesota. These are places where Hillary Clinton's been ahead for most of the campaign. Most of the late polling also shows her leading there, though Donald Trump is competing in Colorado. He is competing in Virginia. He is competing in Wisconsin. Those are places that if she wins, it really eases her path. Then she needs to win a few more electoral votes. She can do it by winning states, Nevada and Pennsylvania, for example, would be enough then to clinch the Electoral College. She also is running pretty well in early voting in North Carolina. Early voting is more of a wash in Florida, which again looks poised to be really on a knife's edge on election night. Donald Trump really needs to win all of those next states, those most competitive states, the Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. Those are states that he desperately needs. Hillary Clinton can cobble together, if she wins the states that have been leaning in her column, she can cobble together 270 electoral votes by picking off only a couple.
Yeah, from my kind of analysis of this, if she, picks up, North Carolina, which with Mitt Romney in 2012, and she holds, a couple of the swing states that you mentioned earlier that Obama won, she gets to 270. He, to me, seems like he's got to almost play a royal flush here. He's got to win, for sure, all of the competitive red states that she's given him a little bit of grief in, and then he's also got to win Nevada, he's got to win Ohio, he's got to win Florida, he's got to win Iowa, he's got to win New Hampshire, and then he still needs maybe one more thing. Is that a pretty accurate analysis?
That is. Look, he needs to hold all of those red states, including North Carolina, which is a state in early voting that there are some danger signs there, though it's not necessarily prohibitive for him. He's doing well in Iowa. He seems to be doing pretty well in Ohio. Those are places where he can pick up some ground, but he cedes almost as much ground if he drops North Carolina. Then you mentioned New Hampshire. There have been some polls over the past 24 hours that indicate New Hampshire may be more of a tie than as Democratic leaning as we thought, but he's still going to need to make inroads somewhere. That might be Pennsylvania, where they don't have the kind of early voting, and it's decided more on Election Day, and it's possible if the race is tightened there that he has more of a chance. I think it's one of the reasons why you're seeing both campaigns focus so heavily on it, particularly Hillary Clinton's campaign. It's no secret why she is finishing her race there on Monday, joined by President Obama, Michelle Obama, Bill Clinton, really loading up on the surrogates in Philadelphia to juice turnout in Pennsylvania, because Donald Trump needs one more state, definitely one state, at least one state that's Democratic leaning, to tip for him right now. Pennsylvania looks increasingly like Hillary Clinton's firewall, and if Donald Trump can't crack that, his paths are really restricted.
All right, we got about 60 seconds left. I want to get your take on this. That looks like the House will certainly stay in the GOP category, although they will lose some seats. Do the Democrats take the Senate, or do the Republicans hold on to the Senate? Can you even give me a prediction on that?
The Senate is really basically a toss-up at this point. Democrats had a lot of momentum when Hillary Clinton was ahead by a wider margin in the polls. Then it looked like it flipped and Republicans had the momentum. Now I'd say it's basically evened out. The one thing I would say, look in Indiana, where the most recent polling shows former Senator Evan Bayh really ceding his lead there to Republican Todd Young. The race is either tied, Young maybe even be slightly ahead at this point. The other states really, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Missouri, North Carolina, all of those states look like coin flips right now. One thing we usually see, though, in these elections is those toss-up states in the Senate, they tend to all go in the same direction on Election Day. Will that happen again on Tuesday night? I don't know, but if they do, don't be surprised to see Democrats win those by a couple of points, or Republicans win them all by a couple of points, rather than each of them splitting evenly.
All right, good observation there. Stephen Shepard with Politico. You can catch his great work at Politico.com. Thank you so much for being with us.